The jungle was not silent that night. Strange creatures called from the dark leaves shook without wind, and something big moved through the trees. The hunters could feel that this was not an ordinary prey. Their ship had landed on this planet 3 days ago, and their task was simple: capture the first human they had tracked across the stars. They had heard stories from other species, stories of humans being dangerous, unpredictable, and hard to kill. But the hunters laughed at those stories. They were the galaxy's best. They had hunted predators larger than ships, beasts with teeth of metal, and shadows that killed without sound. A human? It would be easy. The human's tracks were fresh. Mud had been pressed under heavy boots, leaves bent, branches broken. He was moving fast, but not fast enough. They followed the trail through the thick jungle, their night vision eyes glowing faint green. One of the hunters clicked his jaws, signaling that the prey was close. The group tightened their grips on their energy rifles, scanning every shadow. This was the part they loved most, when the prey knew it was being hunted but still thought it could escape. The leader, a tall hunter with black armor scarred from past kills, raised his hand. Everyone froze. Ahead through the mist, a small fire burned. The human was there. You could see him, a single figure sitting by the flames, his head lowered, a long piece of wood in his hands. The hunters grinned. Was he sharpening a stick? Pathetic. The leader moved first, stepping into the firelight, his armor shining in the glow. Human, his voice growled. The hunt is over. The man looked up slowly. His face was calm, almost too calm. He didn't stand, didn't run, simply tilted his head and studied them. The hunters spread out in a circle, cutting off any escape. They wanted to drag this out, to make him fear them. One hunter stepped forward, lowering his rifle to show. It was no longer needed. Thought the man was beaten already. Then the human smiled. It wasn't the smile of someone trapped. It wasn't the smile of prey. It was the smile of a predator who had been waiting for the right moment. The hunters didn't notice the tripwires in the grass. They didn't notice the strange smell of fuel in the air. They didn't notice the quiet hum of something behind them until it was too late. The man spoke in a low voice. "You've been hunting me." There was a click, and the fire's light reflected in his eyes. "Now," he said, "I hunt you." A sudden roar of flame exploded from behind the hunters, blinding them. The ground shook as hidden charges detonated, throwing dirt and leaves into the air. In the chaos, the human moved, not running away, but straight toward them. He slammed into the nearest hunter, knocking him into the fire. Another fell as the man's sharpened spear punched through armor with terrifying strength. The leader tried to fire, but the man had already disappeared into the smoke. His movements fast and silent, somewhere in the darkness. One of the hunters screamed a short, sharp sound that ended too quickly. The others panicked, searching wildly there. Vision blurred by heat and smoke. It hunted hundreds of creatures before, but never had the prey turn the hunt so suddenly. This was no animal. This was something else. The jungle seemed to close in on them, every shadow hiding danger. The hunters realized too late that they had made a mistake. The human was not running. The human was not afraid. The human was hunting them now. And in that moment, every one of them felt something they had never felt before. Cold, sharp fear. If you want, I can now make part 2 even more intense, showing how the hunters' numbers start to drop one by one. The mist hung heavy. In the jungle, curling around the trees like pale smoke, the hunters moved slowly now. The confidence they had before was gone, replaced by an uneasy silence. Only 5 of them remained, their breathing loud inside their helmets. Somewhere out there, the human was watching. They could feel its eyes. On their backs, a presence in the dark. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound made them twitch. The leader raised a clawed hand to halt the group. He scanned the darkness, his night vision cutting through the fog, but nothing moved. "He is just one," he growled, trying to sound certain. "We are many," but his voice lacked its usual strength. The others noticed. It all seen how fast the first 2 felt, too fast for their elite training to matter. A rustle came from the trees to their right. Instantly, weapons snapped toward the sound. A dark shape leapt down from above, but it wasn't the human. It was one of their own, hanging from a rope, throat cut clean. The body swayed slowly, and a single piece of metal gleamed on the chest of human's combat knife. It's the youngest. Hunter hissed in panic, backing away. He is playing with us, he said, his voice trembling. The leader barked at him to stay calm, but the jungle itself seemed to mock their order. Somewhere ahead, 3 slow claps echoed in the night. They turned toward the sound, rifles raised, but the clapping stopped. Instead, a voice came, low, calm, and far too close. It crossed the wrong line. A blaster fired. Trees lit up with blue light, but nothing was there. Then the youngest hunter screamed as a spear shot from the darkness, piercing his leg and dragging him into the undergrowth. His cries faded into gurgles, then nothing. The hunters fired wildly, lighting up the jungle, but they hit only leaves and shadows. The leader forced them to regroup, backs together, forming a defensive circle. Their scanners picked up movement all around, blips appearing and disappearing too fast to track. The human was using the terrain like a weapon, moving between them. Without a sound, a branch cracked above them. One hunter spun and fired, burning through the wood. A shape dropped, human-shaped, but just a dummy made of vines and armor scraps. While they were distracted, a real shadow moved through the mist. A flash of steel, a grunt, and another hunter collapsed with a blade in his neck. The remaining 3 were shaking now. This was supposed to be a clean capture. But this human was not prey. He was an apex predator in his own territory. Every trap they had been taught, every hunt they had mastered it, meant nothing here. From the dark came the sound of footsteps, slow, steady, deliberate. The human stepped into sight for only a moment, eyes reflecting the faint light. It was breathing evenly like this was easy. Then he vanished again, melting into the trees. The leader clenched his jaw. He knew what this was now. The human wasn't just trying to kill them. He was sending a message. By morning, he thought, either the human would be dead, or none of them would leave this jungle alive. Next part can push part 3 into full survival horror. Only the leader and one last hunter left, trying to escape as the human drives them toward something worse. The night felt endless. The jungle's damp air clung to their armor, and every step seemed louder than it should have been. Only 2 hunters remained now, the leader and his last surviving companion. Their mission was gone, their pride shattered. Now they weren't hunters anymore, they were prey. They moved carefully, trying not to disturb the undergrowth, but the jungle betrayed them. Twigs cracked under their boots, insects whined past their ears. Somewhere in the mist, water dripped in slow, mocking rhythm. The younger of the 2 kept glancing over his shoulder, his weapon shaking slightly. The leader didn't scold him. This time, he was watching the shadows too. They both knew the human was still out there. They hadn't heard him for hours, but that was worse than hearing him. The silence meant he was planning something. A faint metallic sound came from the path ahead. A soft clink like metal, brushing against metal. The leader froze, raising his hand. The young hunter stepped forward cautiously, scanning with his visor. His scanner showed nothing. He took another step. The ground gave way beneath him. With a sharp cry, he plunged into a deep pit lined with sharpened stakes. Armor cracked, and his screams echoed through the jungle. The leader rushed to the edge, looking down. Blood already pooled at the bottom. The young hunter's eyes were wide, his voice ragged. "Help, please." The leader reached down, then stopped. From the darkness beyond the pit, a shape moved. The human stepped into sight, crouching beside the dying hunter. No weapon in his hand this time, just that same calm expression. The leader raised his rifle, but the human didn't even flinch. He rested a hand on the younger hunter's helmet, almost gently. Then, without looking up, he spoke. "Leave him," the human said. "Run." The leader's finger twitched on the trigger. He could shoot now, end this. But there was something in the man's voice, steady, confident, almost certain. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. The leader backed away, his mind racing. He turned and started moving, faster and faster, pushing through the brush. He didn't care about stealth now. He just needed distance. Behind him, the dying hunter's voice faded into silence. But as the leader ran, he began to notice something strange. The jungle was changing. The ground sloped upward, the trees thinner, the air colder. Then he saw a faint orange glow in the distance. For a heartbeat, he felt hope, a clearing, maybe even a way out. He pushed forward, bursting through the trees. It wasn't a camp. It wasn't safety. It was a ring of fires, each one burning low and in the center. Dozens of skulls, arranged in a perfect circle. Human skulls. Alien skulls. Creatures he didn't recognize, all cleaned, polished, and placed with care. The human was standing there waiting for him. The flames painted his face in gold and shadow. "You found my line?" he said quietly. "No one crosses it?" The leader's breath came in quick bursts. His weapon felt heavy in his hands. He could feel his heart pounding against the armor. Then, from somewhere deep in the jungle, came the sound of more footsteps, heavy, deliberate, and not just one set. The leader realized too late. The human had never been alone. If you want, I can make part 4. Twist the story by revealing what is coming through the trees and why the hunters will wish they died before seeing it. The leader turned toward the sound, rifle snapping up, shapes. Moved in the firelight, at first only dark silhouettes between the trees, but then the glow revealed them. They were humans. Not one, not two, but at least a dozen, stepping out of the jungle in complete silence. Their faces were painted in, black and green, their eyes cold and unreadable. Each carried weapons, some modern, some crude, all deadly. The leader's mind raced. His mission report had said only one human was on this planet. Here they were, moving like shadows, surrounding him without a word. These were not ordinary civilians. Every step they took was precise. Controlled soldiers, predators, killers. The first human, the one who had been hunting them from the start, gave a short nod to the others. "He's the last," he said. His voice was calm, almost casual, like they were discussing a task already finished. The leader tightened his grip on his rifle. "You planned this." His voice shook despite himself. The human smile didn't reach his eyes. "We don't hunt for sport," he replied. "We hunt when someone crosses our ground." One of the new arrivals stepped closer, holding a weapon unlike anything the leader recognized, a thick, short-barreled launcher with strange markings carved into it. The soldier handed it to the first human, who took it without looking away from the alien. "You came here thinking you were the predator," the human said. "You thought you'd take one of us?" He raised the weapon slowly, the barrel glinting. "In the firelight? But you walked into our nest." The leader's instincts screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. Fires ringed the clearing, and every gap between them was blocked by a silent human with steady aim. He felt trapped in a cage that had been there all along, invisible until now. The first shot came not from the weapon pointed at him, but from somewhere behind. Pain exploded through his armor as something hit his shoulder, spinning him around. Before he could recover, 2 more shots struck his legs, forcing him to his knees. His rifle fell into the dirt. The first human walked forward, lowering the launcher. He crouched so their eyes were level. "This is where your hunt ends," he said, "and ours begins." Then, with a sharp gesture, he signaled to the others. The ring of humans closed in. The leader barely registered the first blow before the world became a blur of shadows. Firelight and pain. He fought, but they moved too fast, striking from every side. It wasn't a kill, it was dismantling piece by piece. Stripping away his strength, his pride, his will, somewhere above the chaos, he heard the first human's voice again, almost like it was being spoken directly into his mind. "You'll live long enough to tell them what happens when they come here. Then, nothing but darkness. If you want, part 5 can open with the leader waking up somewhere completely different still. Alive, but in a place that will make him wish he wasn't. Cold." That was the first thing the leader felt when he woke. Not the humid warmth of the jungle, not the sticky heat of alien blood. This was a deep, bone-cutting cold. His vision swam, shapes shifting until they settled into focus. A metal room, the walls bare, except for faint scratches that looked like claw marks. His armor was gone, his weapons gone. His hands were bound behind his back with something that felt like braided wire. He tried to move, but every motion sent a bite of pain into his wrists. His legs were weak, trembling when he shifted his weight. Then he heard it. A slow drip of water, echoing in the silence. Each drop landed with the same rhythm, steady, like a countdown. The door slid open with a heavy groan. Inside, not rushing, not armed in any obvious way, just carrying a metal chair, which he placed in the center of the room. He sat down and looked at the leader for a long moment. "You're awake," the human said, voice calm, almost conversational. "Good." The leader's throat was dry. "Why am I still alive?" The human leaned back, resting his elbows on the chair's arms, "'Cause dead enemies don't send warnings, and I need you to send one." He reached into a pocket and pulled out a small device, and he pressed it. A projection filled the air, a hologram of the leader's own hunting crew, each one shown where they had fallen in the jungle. The images were still cold, final. "You came here thinking you could take one of us," the human continued. "You thought we were weak, but now you know better." The leader forced his voice steady. "Others will come. More than you can. Fight." The human's expression didn't change. "Then they'll join the circle in the clearing." The leader's breathing quickened. He remembered those skulls, the perfect arrangement, the quiet respect in how they were placed. It wasn't chaos, it was ritual. The human stood and walked toward him. "I want you to tell them exactly what you saw. The traps, the ambush. Way you felt when you realized you weren't the hunter anymore." He leaned closer. "Tell them you looked into our eyes and saw no fear." The leader stayed silent, but inside something shifted. He had fought beasts, killers, warlords, but nothing like this. This wasn't just one man. This is the culture. A people who treated their land like a living thing to be defended at any cost. The human tapped the door twice, and it slid open again. Two more humans entered, their steps quiet but deliberate. One carried a heavy pack, the other a weapon that hummed faintly. The human who had captured him glanced back. "You leave at dawn," he said. "Your ship will be waiting. You'll live, but you'll carry our message." The leader wanted to believe this was over, but deep down, as he was led out of the cold room, he knew it wasn't. Because the human didn't just want to send a warning. He wanted to make sure the galaxy understood if they hunted humans again. There would be no last survivor next time. Part 6 can now close. The story with the leader's return to his people, how his report is received, and the chilling decision the alien high command makes after hearing it. The leader's ship cut through the dark between stars, but he didn't feel the relief he thought he would. Every vibration of the hull, every shadow in the corners of the cabin made him tense. He kept seeing the jungle in his mind, the fire-lit clearing, the skulls, the calm, cold eyes of the human who had let him live. When his ship docked at the high command station, the air smelled sterile, recycled, too clean, too safe. It made him feel exposed, like the walls could never protect against what he had seen. The officers were waiting, 3 of them, dressed in the dark robes of the Hunt Council. Their eyes scanned him as though they could read the truth in his bones. He was escorted into the council chamber, its high ceiling casting long shadows. "Report," the eldest demanded. The leader's throat tightened. He told them everything. The landing, the tracking, the first sighting of the human by the fire, how the hunt had flipped in seconds. The traps, the sudden disappearances, the way his crew had been taken apart one by one. He described the circle of skulls, the arrival of the silent human soldiers, the cold room where he was kept alive. When he finished, the chamber was silent. No one moved. Then one of the younger council members leaned forward, voice dripping with disbelief. "You expect us to believe a single human defeated your entire crew?" The leader's eyes hardened. It was not a single human. It was a predator that knew the jungle better than we knew ourselves. And he was not alone. The eldest tapped his claws slowly on the armrest, and this predator, he let you live. Yes, to bring this message: if we hunt them again, they will not stop until we are all gone. For a moment there was a faint murmur among the council, low and uneasy. Finally, the eldest spoke again. We cannot allow fear to control the Hunt Council. If they can fight us, we will send more, stronger, faster. We will burn their jungles and drag them from their nests. The leader shook his head sharply. And you will be digging your own graves. The council ignored the warning. Orders were given. Scouts would map human territory. Warships would prepare for a larger strike. The leader left the chamber with a hollow feeling in his chest. He knew what was coming, and he knew how it would end. The humans would not run. They would not plead. They would fight with the patience of the jungle and the precision of predators who had been defending their home since the dawn of their kind. As his transport carried him back to his quarters, he thought of the humans' final words in that cold metal room, no last survivor next time, and for the first time in his life, the leader of the galaxy's greatest hunters hoped that his people would be smart enough never to return to that planet again.